Excel 2016, Module 6, Part 2. We are working with formulas that will reference another worksheet in this segment. So we will also be creating a summary worksheet that we will then use to summarize the data in the other 4 worksheets in our workbook. So let's go back to our Michigan workbook. You should have already formatted it so that all 4 quarters look similar to the one that you're looking at. What we're going to do to start with is we're going to make a copy of the quarter 1 worksheet. You can do that by hitting a right click and choosing Move or Copy. You could also get this same option by coming up here to the Format and choosing Move or Copy. I'm going to say that I want to create a copy and I want to put it before quarter 1. I am going to rename this worksheet Summary. And the next thing I want to do is I want to make some changes to this sheet itself. Notice that it's not grouped. So all of the changes that I am making right now will only affect the summary worksheet. So I'm going to click at the end of the word Jackson in A2 and add the word totals. In A3, I want the year of 2017 instead of a quarter. And then in the contents in B6 through E11, I'm going to clear that data. So I can come over here and clear the contents. You can also use a right click to clear those contents. I'm going to insert another column here between C and B, so I can use the insert button for that. And then I am going to copy this formula over into that next column. I'm going to type quarter 1 as my column heading in column B. And then I'm going to use autofill to fill in quarters 1, 2, 3, and 4. So now you can see we have the shell of a summary worksheet that we can work with. Now the first thing that we want to do is we want to get the year so that it will display on each of the quarterly worksheets in cell A4. But I only want to have to type the information once on the summary worksheet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a formula in cell A4 on each of the quarterly worksheets that will reference the information that I type on the summary worksheet. Because the formula is going to be the same on all 4 worksheets and it will be in the same cell, I can group them and do it once. So I'm going to click on quarter 1, click on quarter 4 holding the shift key, and now I have a group. Notice the word group. So when I begin typing this formula in cell A4, it is going to update cell A4 in all 4 of those worksheets. So we're going to type the equal sign to begin a formula. Then you're going to click on the summary worksheet where the data is. Next, you're going to click on the cell that you are trying to reference. So now you can see the formula reads, it's equal to the summary worksheet, so your worksheet name, followed by an exclamation point, followed by the cell reference. You'll see in a couple of minutes that if there are spaces in the worksheet name, then the worksheet name has to be enclosed in single quotes. So you can see that using your mouse to create these formulas is much easier than trying to type them. If you type them, you have to remember all the punctuation. Now the other thing that's important is once you click on cell A3, you do not want to click anywhere else with your mouse. You cannot click back to the original worksheet that you were on, because every click you make, it's trying to change the formula. So once you have the cell in there correct, you hit enter, since that's the only thing we are referencing. So if you click on cell A4 in any one of these 4 worksheets, you will see that formula. I'm going to go ahead and click on the summary worksheet. So you can see how it works to simply reference other data. We could do mathematical functions with it. For example, you could reference a cell and then say add another cell to it. But what we're going to do now is we're going to look at what happens with that formula if I change the data. So instead of just putting the year, we've now decided it should say fiscal year space dash space and then the 2017 after that. So when I hit enter and I change the data on the primary cell, if I look at the other formulas, they have all been updated. Okay, let's go back and look at our summary workbook again. Worksheet, sorry. We are going to be using a formula now that's going to reference the worksheets individually. So for child care centers in B6, I want to reference the total on quarter 1 for child care. So I'm going to start out, remember you do not want to have a group, equals quarter 1 E6. Now since you're not adding anything else to this, you're going to hit enter. If you were continuing the formula, you could continue to type and then click other places. But if you're not continuing the formula, do not click anywhere else. Hit the enter key to finish your formula. Let's go ahead and build those formulas for the rows, first row, for quarters 1, 2, 3, and 4. So what we're going to say is equal to quarter 2, row E6. Again, after you click on E6, you hit the enter key. You do not click anywhere else. Equals quarter 3, E6, enter. And then equals quarter 4, E6, enter. So you can see we have all 4 quarterly totals in there. Now I could go in and do each row like that. But what you need to remember is that with our formulas that are referencing another worksheet, the relative and absolute reference that we talked about before in Module 3 work the same way. The cell is going to be either absolute or relative. The worksheet will remain constant. So if I copy this formula down, the cell reference is relative, so it will move, but it will stay the worksheet quarter 1. So we want all of these to be relative, and when I drag them down to fill in the formulas, I notice it brought the dollar signs down, and if I clicked somewhere else, you would see that the underline had disappeared. So I don't want that. What I need to do is click on this autofill options and tell it to fill without formatting. Now when I click somewhere else, you can see that it kept my formatting the way it was, but it copied, it copied the formulas. So E7, E8, E9. Now on an exam, if you had forgotten to do this step, and you got to the end of the exam and you realized that you didn't do it and you had all the dollar signs there, you lost your underline, you can just simply go back in, put the bottom border back, reformat these to the comma setting, and put it back the way it belongs, and it would be fine. The thing is, that creates extra steps that you have to remember to do later. So you can see now how it works when we reference cells in a formula, as in here, or as in here. If there is a space, you have to have a single quote. If you copy them, the worksheet will stay constant and the cell reference will behave appropriately, whether it is absolute referenced or relative referenced. In the next section, we're going to consider a formula called a 3D reference formula.